I'm an addict named Edward. The addict I'm about to introduce is special in my life. He's someone I asked to help guide me in his recovery process. I admire him for his walk, his talk, his energy, but most of all, I admire him for his simplicity. Without further ado, I introduce you an addict from Fort Wayne named Jimmy B.
I'm an addict. My name is Jimmy B. Ooh, thank God for Narcotics Anonymous. I want to thank the programming committee for having enough faith in me to give a Narcotics Anonymous message. Man, lights kind of bright. I think I'm in Hollywood. Not you. The lights, man. I'm really so grateful that I've been given a chance at this new way of life. I've lived a life of demoralization and degradation for a whole lot of years before I even heard about Narcotics Anonymous. I was like 42 years old when I came into the program. And I'm one of them addicts that's older than the program of Narcotics Anonymous. But I wasn't introduced to it until I was thoroughly beaten and still didn't surrender to this program. I've been introduced to it a few times before something happened that I grasped hold to the concept of it's that first one that always starts that deadly cycle all over again. My story starts off, man, I believe I was an addict long before I picked up that first dope. I remember my mother incorporating some unspiritual principles in my life. She taught me how to lie at a very early age. I remember when we had landline phones. Yeah, some of y'all don't remember that shit though, right? That was when we didn't have no microwaves and all that other shit, right? Life was really simple then, But I remember we had them landline phones and my mother would have them bill collectors call and she'd say, tell them I'm not home. And I'd tell her that she wasn't home and she said, good boy, son, good boy. And so I learned how to lie at a real early age and I thought that's how life was supposed to be. 1962, or the summer of 1962, I picked up my first drug. It was that liquid dope. I remember me and a friend of mine stealing some of it from my stepdad. We went over on the railroad tracks, drank the stuff up, got diarrhea behind it, and we said, let's go get another one. The insanity of the disease had set in when I was 9 years old. I remember going through high school and drinking, and I remember at the age of 18, my brother had came back from Vietnam, and I get really emotional because the shit is so real, right? My brother came back from Vietnam and had a lot of his muscle blowed out of his legs. And I remember thinking about, man, I'm gonna enlist in the Marine Corps so I can go get them dirty motherfuckers, for shooting my brother up. And I remember I enlisted, I was 30 days out of high school. I went out to MCRD San Diego. And I was introduced to the real drug world. Back in the early 70s, it was 1971. Drugs was real, just like they are now. You can get anything that you wanted whenever you wanted it. And I started taking a whole lot of different drugs and a lot of different chemicals to make me feel accepted and different, And after the Marine Corps, I got out and I come back to Fort Wayne and the dope just wasn't the same. It was like, it wasn't as powerful, it wasn't as good as. And I remember just thinking about how life was gonna be when I got out. I started working at the post office, I had gotten married, had a child. Had a son, I wanted him to grow up to be just like me. You know, real cool, hip, and slick. And man, after I worked at the post office for about 17 years, I remember going in there and the man told me I couldn't keep coming to work and getting high, so I quit going to work. You know, the disease had me in the grip, right? I remember about a year after that, that was in 94, about two months prior to that, my oldest brother had passed away, the one that got shot up in Vietnam. And I remember the post office that gave me a nice little card with a lot of money in it. And I said, thank you, God. I took that money and got high with it. Because that's what I know how to do. You know, it was a free high that day. And 2 months later is when they told me I couldn't keep working to keep getting high. So about a year later, September 11th of 1995, I was sitting in my house. It had my name on the house, didn't have no lights, no water, no nothing but my house. And God had sent some angels in some SWAT team uniforms to come and rescue me. And that's my story. I wasn't arrested, I was rescued. And I remember when they came in there and I don't know, man, the insanity of the disease had set in, man. I'm sitting up there getting high, the police busting the windows open, and I'm trying to kick this little concussion grenade out the room so I can still keep getting high. I must have thought that if I just got rid of the grenade, the police was gonna stop coming in there. I didn't know what the hell I was thinking. But I do know that was the last time I picked up any mind-altering, mood-changing chemicals, though. Man. I had been introduced to Narcotics Anonymous a couple times before that, and I just thought I had a better way, a different way to do things. Life would be okay. I could still get high and just not suffer the consequences. But it was something special happened that day for me. I remember laying on the cold concrete floor of the Allen County Jail and crying out to God once again, God, please save me. And some kind of feeling came over me. And I know now it's a spiritual awakening. I didn't know it then because I didn't know nothing about spiritual awakenings, because I thought a spiritual awakening was if I was blind and God healed me. I didn't know that the relief of the obsession to use drugs was a real miracle until I surrendered to this program of Narcotics Anonymous. I remember that night so vividly, and I remember making that last bargain with God. If you just get me clean, I'll do what it takes to stay clean. And man, I've done a whole lot of things to stay clean in this process. Even the things that I didn't want to do. Go to meetings when I didn't want to go to meetings. Picking up a person to take them to a meeting when I didn't want to drive on the other side of town and then back on this side of town to a meeting. You know, there's a whole lot of times, man, I thought about giving up. But it's something special about you addicts, about y'all people. There's something special about the hugs and the love that y'all gave me. You know, and it's so apropos that this convention, we grow with love. And that's the only way I've grown in this process. You know, through the love that the members that have been around here before me shared with me. You know, the Johnny R's, the Cliff. And I don't want to keep calling names, man, because so many of y'all have been real instrumental in my process. Ain't that right, Denise? You know, look, if I didn't mention her name, I couldn't go back to Fort Wayne, right? Because everybody got a girl, and that's my girl. It is something real special about the love that we have in this fellowship, right? You know, a few stories that I got, and I ain't no real storyteller. You know, I just share my whole strength and experience. When I was in jail, on my way to the penitentiary, right, I remember both my sons was locked up, and they was getting ready to do some little bits, and one had 6 months to do, one had a couple years. And I remember standing in front of the judge, and he sends me to 6 years DOC, and I'm waiting up there because he has suspended a couple other people's sentences, right? So I'm waiting on him to suspend some of mine, and he said, "That's all." And I looked at him, and my knees felt weak once again. Any of y'all ever stood in front of the judge and he gave you some time? Y'all know that feeling, right? And so I go back to the cell, and me and God, we had this little conversation. You know, God, I know you're trying to teach me a lesson, but 6 years is a little bit too long for the lesson that I want to learn, right? I could have learned the lesson in 2 years. But sometimes God knows better than we know, right? So I'm getting ready to go to RDC, the Regional Diagnostic Center, where they sentence you so they'll know what penitentiary they're going to send you to. And me and my one son is going down there together, and we locked up and chained up like dogs. And I'm thinking about how cool this shit is. Me and my son riding off to the joint, right? And then the next moment, man, I'm thinking about how sick this shit is. How real gut-wrenching. Man, I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what the hell to feel. I just know it wasn't right. I know life wasn't supposed to be like me and my son riding to the penitentiary, chained up like dogs together. I knew that wasn't right. Then the next moment, man, I went back to me and my son rolling out again. And man, I remember that ride down there, man, flip-flopping back. I was so emotional. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or what the hell to do. So I prayed. And there's something about when we pray, some remarkable things start happening. You know, some things far beyond our capacities we are able to do. You know, that's when God comes in and touches my life, man. I remember, man, I'm in the penitentiary. My son gets out. About 6 months later, man, and I'm sitting in the day room, May the 1st of 1997, I'm sitting in the day room outside the walls of Pendleton Reformatory, and I'm watching the news, and they show this picture of this young man talking about he was wanted for murder. He had killed a couple people. And I looked up there, and it was my son. And I really felt powerless. Never felt so much alone in my life. Never knew what to do, man. I remember looking at that picture, man, and it was just like, this shit ain't real. Can't be. Not my son. Not the one that I wanted to grow up to be just like me. You know, he walks like me and he talks like me for real. You know? And I remember going back to the dorm room and just crying out to God, man. There's something about when you start building a relationship with this God of your understanding. There's something real special about how he just knows just how tight to hold you. Just know how to hold your arm, wrap your arms around you just in the right spot. You know, there's something about how he just lay his cheek against your cheek and just whisper in your ear and tell you it's gonna be all right. There's something real special about when you start building a relationship with God. Just like it's something special about building a relationship with you members of Narcotics Anonymous. There's something about when you go through some things, how the members just band together. Call you up, text you, and say, Jimmy, you ain't got to go through it alone. You know, these things and this love that we talking about, that we getting, that agape love, that unconditional love that's given in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. Been through a whole lot of things, man. Never in my wildest dreams had I thought that I would meet a group of people that was as special as y'all are. So I'm laying in that day room, right? I'm going back to my room, man, and I'm feeling this love from God, but I'm keep questioning God, why? Why? And it's something, I don't know. I know it's a spiritual awakening again. I know that, man, God don't make no mistakes, man. I know he know what he doing. I just didn't know what he was doing that night. So my son, I'm getting ready to get out in September of 98. My son gets sentenced in August of 98 to 180 years. Yeah, that's a long ass time, ain't it? You know, just for the day though. I get out and I'm thinking about, man, if I could just get something and flip something, I can get some money and get him out, right? God shows up again, right? I get out and I go register for parole. I go down there and take my picture, and I'm going in there, and this other dude had been with me when I was up in the Ville in 96. He was coming back and he said, man, I'm getting ready to go do a fresh 20. And he was all nonchalant, like it was okay to do some more time. It ain't okay to do no more time. You know, there's a story in the back of the 5th edition of Basic Text, I can't do no more time. I refuse to give the state or anybody else any more of my time. And the dude was like, it's okay. Like, man, it's not okay. It's not okay to leave your family, your friends, you know, over one more. After that, I go back to the parole officer, right? And he said, Jimmy, he said, you got to go to them meetings and them classes. I said, I do? He said, yeah. I said, do I have any other choices? He said, yeah, you can go back to the penitentiary. I said, I'll go to meetings. There's something about that penitentiary, y'all. And for me, man, I'm telling you, and I share this all the time at meetings in Fort Wayne, is that, man, penitentiary is more demoralized and degrading than any dope house that I've been in. I ain't never had to raise my hand to go piss when I was in the dope house. I ain't never stood in line with 200 men for some food that I knew I wasn't gonna like. I didn't have to turn the lights out at 9 o'clock. Hell, half the time we didn't even have no lights, but you know, I ain't had to turn the ones out when I had them, right? You know, penitentiary was real, you know, you sign up for the phone and all that other shit, man. I got tired of that. So I started coming to meetings, man, and I remember the first time I went to a meeting, I had seen somebody that I had knew, kind of grew up together, and I felt a little comfortable in the rooms. He ain't no longer in the rooms, but it's something I felt that first day that I went to my first meeting as a free man. You know, and being free is something else. Now, literature talks about the last to be lost to freedom is the stigma of being an addict, right? For me, man, that freedom is gone. You know, I tell everybody, man, I got to come to this convention, this camp out, man. I didn't have to ask no parole officer, no probation officer, no case manager, no house mother, no house daddy, nobody else. You know, I came up here on my own. I don't know for y'all, for me, it's a great freedom. You know, I ain't locked and loaded in the system no more. You know, even though my son doing a lot of time, I'm not the one. You know, so the freedom for me, man, is being able to come and go as I please. The freedom for me is to stay clean today too. You know, so I started going to meetings, man, and it's something special when we invite that loving and caring higher power in the meetings. You know, it's something when he comes in, be ready for him. For you newcomers that haven't had a spiritual awakening yet, you probably already had, you just don't know it. You know, sometimes we look for that atomic boom or that sonic shit to happen, that bolt of lightning come down. But sometimes, man, them spiritual awakenings are so subtle, we miss a lot of them. You know, just to see the smile on the addict's face when he come in there and he's been clean for 30 days. You know, that's the kind of spiritual awakenings I'm talking about. Something that's so subtle that if you ain't watching, if you ain't in tune with God, guess what? You'll miss it. You know, I truly believe that this is a God-given program, and I give God all the thanks. I'm so grateful that God rescued me. You know, I often wonder sometimes what made me so special. You know, he didn't rescue my brothers. You know, he didn't rescue my nieces, my nephews, my sons. You know, but it's something special about rescuing me. And I guess it's because he knew that I was going to one day carry this message to other addicts. And the message is that an addict, any addict, regardless of race, age, creed, color, size, shape, whatever, any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. There's something special about this new way to live, though, right? It takes a while to get comfortable living this new way of life. God's will for me ain't always exciting. Because I was one, you know what? For me, it was more about the lifestyle than the dope. Sometimes I have to kind of like nudge God along the way to make him like get a little bit of pep in your step or get a little more exciting for me. Then I know I'm out of God's will. I'm in the self-will. If I just wait on God, everything's going to be all right. Just for the day, man, I made a choice that I wasn't going to use. And it's a subconscious choice I guess I make every day. But I'm going to tell you, man, I quit smoking about 12 years ago, right? But I seen this lady in this car today, and she like, it looks so disease-filled. I said, damn, she look cool. Coolness is my forte, y'all. And I'm not arrogant, I'm not confident, I'm just still self-centered. And there's something about the way that I walk and the way that I talk. You know, I tried to talk white one time. Shit just don't work for me. I tried to walk white one time. Shit just don't work right for me, y'all. I remember when I was out there doing the wrong shit, right, and going in front of folks and I remember grabbing a grocery cart trying to push what I was going to return back in there and felt so real uncomfortable. Shit just don't work for me. I do know what works for me, though. This program of Narcotics Anonymous. I know it only works because I've surrendered. I've asked y'all to help me. I was thinking of, man, I was over at this chapel, man, and I got to thinking about a whole lot of instances in my life, man, that I wanted to share about, right? But the most profound thing I ever heard in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous is when a newcomer stood up and said, please help me. Please help me. There's something special about that kind of help that we give. And the help is called love. Once you start learning how to love yourself and start learning how to love other people, and I ain't talking about lust, I'm talking about love. I'm talking about that unconditional love. I'm talking about that love that grows when we care and when we share with others the NA way. I'm talking about that love that can't be bought. I'm talking about that love that can't be sold. I'm talking about that love that only we can give to each other. We don't have no monopoly on that love. Our family had that same love if we learn how to teach them how to love us. Once we start learning how to get better, our families should be getting better. And our families get better because we share the same love that was given to us as we grow with love. I love this convention, y'all, but I love the program of Narcotics Anonymous because it has shown me a new way to live. It has given me a chance to do the impossible, one day at a time. I would never even fathom staying clean for 18 years. Never in my wildest. I was one of them addicts that I was going to die getting high. You know. But today, man, if God takes me today, man, I'll have one of them eternity medallions. I ain't got so arrogant I went out and bought me one yet, though. Don't get me wrong. But I know our literature talks about those who thoroughly work the program of Narcotics Anonymous won't relapse. You know, and I do all it takes, even when I don't want to. You know, I go to meetings on a regular basis. With 18 years clean, I go to 5 or 6 meetings every week. I remember what it was like. I remember the degradation and demoralization. I remember the not having nothing. I remember all the things that went with the disease of addiction and the lifestyle. Today, man, I'm a winner, man. And I'm a winner because I choose not to pick up no dope. I'm a winner because I come and I want to share and care with others the NA way. I'm a winner because I keep continually giving away what I keep getting. And that's the message of hope. Man, the promise is freedom, man. If you're here today, man, and you're clean, you can stay clean, man. After you'd have heard the message, man, you ain't got no more excuses to go out and get high. You know, whoever dies in your family, whoever rent needs paid or a house getting evicted, you lose jobs, lose loved ones, man. You ain't got to pick up no dope. I was hearing a couple speakers today, man, sharing some real things about how God was working in life, replacing some material things. And I was just thinking about thanking God for replacing some spiritual things in my life. Man, for giving me a new heart, softening it up, man, and giving me some love, man, I never would imagine possible. You know, and it's an honor and a privilege to be up here sharing, man. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Jimmy, for sharing. We still got about 20 minutes. If anybody wants, we can open this up for comments or whatever's going on. Nope? They tell me no. I'm new. So look, there's going to be an auction over here. Before we close, there's an auction over in the building where we registered. This item down here, we're going to pull the raffle over there. If you want to buy any tickets, get with Erwin or whoever's got that tickets. Who knows where they're at. And then there's a comedy thing going on over here somewhere at 10 o'clock, I guess. So why don't we circle up, we'll do a group hug, and finish the night out.
in these rooms and know that the power that God and understanding may have one of your loved ones standing next to you the next time that we meet. A moment of silence followed by the third step prayer. Many have said,